The movie begins on a cold February night in the back streets of London, where two thugs are terrorizing homeless people. Inside one of the cardboard boxes, a woman named Isabel warns Joseph not to fight back with the thugs. It's revealed that Joseph is an ex-Special Forces veteran who went AWOL, meaning absent without leave from his unit in Afghanistan. He now lives as a homeless drunk in London. Meanwhile, Isabel attempts to hide the drugs by putting them in her mouth. However, the thugs eventually catch wind of this and take it away. One of them even tries to unzip Isabel's jacket, and this is when Joseph loses it. He punishes some of them, allowing Isabel enough time to escape. However, soon he's overpowered and beaten to a pulp. After being seriously injured, Joseph climbs up a building, breaks into an apartment, and discovers the owner is not home. So he spends the night there. The following morning, one of the thugs finds Isabel and pulls a knife on her. In the meantime, Joseph showers, shaves his head, changes into some clothes found in the apartment, and looks more decent than he has been lately. Suddenly, the phone rings, and when it goes to voicemail, Joseph learns that the owner of the apartment, Damon, is in New York and won't be back until October 1st, which is months away from now. Hence, Joseph makes himself at home and searches through the entire place. In the mailbox, he finds a newly issued debit card with the PIN mentioned there. So he heads to an ATM, withdraws cash, and gets wasted. He begins to assume the life of the owner, Damon, calling himself Joey Jones. Later that night, as he walks through the streets of London, Joseph recalls the time he served in Afghanistan. He stumbles into a homeless shelter where Christina, a nun, runs a soup kitchen. He asks her for Isabel, with whom he got separated the other day. However, instead of replying to his question, Christina inquires where he got the nice clothes. Joseph doesn't say anything about the new apartment, but he does give her £500 to buy something nice for herself. Later, Christina discusses Joseph's generous donation with the Mother Superior of the Covenant, who suggests she allocate the money to one of their funds. Christina asks if she can buy something she has been wanting to buy for a long time. The Mother Superior agrees, so she goes to the theater to buy a ticket to the ballet. However, the ticket salesman informs her that all the tickets are sold out except for one, a box ticket for a farewell show on the 1st of October, which is for £500. In the meantime, Joseph wakes up from a nightmare and realizes he's hallucinating when he sees hummingbirds flying around the apartment and a man being hung from a ceiling. Feeling restless, he goes to Christina's for some medicine, and she tells him to go to the hospital. Joseph responds that he cannot do so since he's been running away from the court-martial since he went AWOL from Special Forces. He also tells her that he has 2 broken ribs due to the beating from the thugs the other night, and an infection that will kill him if it spreads. Worried, the caring nun gives him antibiotics and painkillers. She also tells him that she's asked around for Isabel. Apparently, nobody has seen Isabel around since the fight, and she also hasn't come back for the food, which she always got from the nun. In the next scene, Joseph returns to the apartment and finds the keys to Damon's black Mercedes. He then drives it around the city, putting up posters with Damon's number to find the missing Isabel. Later that evening, he gets a voicemail from Isabel telling him not to look for her anymore and that she's apparently safe. She explains that she's decided to work for the thugs for a few weeks until she has enough money to sustain herself. Later, a man wearing a nice suit, sporting a scar above his eye, meets up with the thug that pulled a knife on Isabel earlier. The two then go to a parcel delivery store, where the man in the suit observes 3 blonde women, one of them being Isabel. It is revealed that she is currently working as a call girl in an underground brothel run by the thug. Meanwhile, someone buzzes at the door while Joseph is making some healthy breakfast for himself. He had just arrived from grocery shopping. When he doesn't answer the door, a woman's voice says that she saw someone walk inside the apartment and threatens to call the police. Joseph reluctantly opens the door and lies to the woman that he's one of Damon's boyfriends. He was told to stay at the apartment for the summer until he can get his life back together. To his relief, the woman believes him and leaves him alone. All this while, Joseph continues his old job as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant, where he also works as an unpaid bouncer when trouble arises. One night, the owner of the restaurant has a hard time dealing with a group of boys who are getting rowdy. When Joseph escorts the boys outside, one of them gets angry and attacks him. As an ex-military, Joseph takes care of the boys without breaking a sweat. The owner of the restaurant watches him as he demonstrates his fighting ability. Later, the owner introduces Joseph to Mr. Choi, who does dirty work for him. Joseph is then hired by Mr. Choi as a driver/thug, collecting extortion payments and delivering drugs. From that day onwards, Joseph starts earning a lot of cash, helping Mr. Choi establish a good business in the neighborhood. He also begins to do charitable work, ordering pizzas for the homeless who regularly line up for food in Christina's soup kitchen. Because of this act of kindness, the homeless begin calling him Crazy Joe. Fast forward to 3 months later in July, Joseph bumps into Dawn, his ex-girlfriend. She gets agitated as he looks rich and well-established, while she and their daughter are fending for themselves with little money. However, Joseph calms her down the best way he can, by giving her a stash of money. He then tells her that there's a lot more from where the money came from. Later in the evening, the nun, Christina, finds boxes of clothes outside a convent, with a note inviting her out. She goes to the specified location, where Joseph is waiting for her. The two then have a wonderful time, enjoying some barbecue. Later, Christina mentions that she has some news and shows him a police photo of Isabel, dead. Apparently, her corpse was found near a river. Christina adds that the police came looking for her as they needed someone to identify the body. Enraged, Joseph burns the picture and sits down to eat dinner. Christina then says that the police think Isabel was killed by one of her clients, and they also found drugs in her immune system when an autopsy was carried out. Hearing all this, Joseph throws off his food in a fit of rage, while Christina calls him a hypocrite as he's the one dealing with the drugs. When he settles down, Christina encourages him to start an honest life. She also confides in him that she spent some of the money given by him and returns the rest. Later, Joseph follows the thugs who beat him earlier and asks them if they remember him. One of them pulls out a knife, but Joseph beats them smoothly, interrogating them about Isabel's murder. The thug with the knife thinks a 30-something guy with a scar above his eye killed Isabel. Learning this information, Joseph leaves the thug, but only after punishing him a bit more. The next day, Joseph meets Christina at an art gallery where she's wearing a beautiful dress gifted by him. He is stunned to see her, but she explains she wore the dress because it's the only one she has. Christina then explains that she's there to get information on Isabel's killer. When a customer at the gallery starts asking them questions about who they are, the two leave the premises as soon as they can in order to hide their real identity. While walking on the street, Christina gets a bit tipsy as she had been drinking at the gallery earlier. She learns that the owner of the apartment, Damon, is returning on October 1st, the same day as her ballet concert. She says it must be fate, and they share a kiss before parting ways. The next morning, Joseph is stopped by one of Damon's neighbors, who asks him how things are going lately. They chat for a while, and Joseph continues to lie to the neighbor about his real identity, posing as Joey Jones. Meanwhile, the police learn of Joey or Joseph's activities and begin questioning Christina. They have been after him after learning about his dirty work with Mr. Choi. Later, Joseph finds Christina and gets to know that the cops are after him. He is shocked and enraged with the fact that he is a much more wanted criminal than the person who murdered Isabel. Joseph then drives Christina to the convent, and on the way, she asks him what happened when she got drunk the other night. Joseph teasingly explains that they kissed, and hearing this, Christina becomes a bit shy. Then they begin sharing their life stories. Christina reveals that she was assaulted by her gymnastics instructor several times, and it all began when she was just 10 years old. One day, she couldn't take it any longer, and hence, brutally killed the man. Christina was then sent to the convent instead of being jailed, as she was very young. She confides in Joseph that she has never told her life story to anyone before. The ex-military also shares that he just ran out of Afghanistan while he was on duty. Christina later meets the Mother Superior at the convent and asks her to be transferred to a mission in Sierra Leone. She reasons that there are too many distractions in London and that Africa has always been a place to serve in her life plan. She adds that she is ready to leave after the 1st of October. In the meantime, Joey continues his search for Isabel's killer, trading services with Mr. Choi's boss. The boss, Madam Jenny, tells him that she knows the description of the killer, but she will only disclose it in exchange for a favor. Joseph is then given the keys to a truck with boxes containing refugees/slaves to be delivered. Meanwhile, Isabel's killer, the man with a scar above his eye, is beating a hooker. Another hooker hears the commotion and approaches the room, where she sees the man's coat hanging outside it. She checks the coat and finds his invitation to a rooftop cocktail party, which is on October 1st. Elsewhere, Joseph delivers the truck containing the refugees to a warehouse, under the instruction of Madam Jenny. He's then paid with cash, along with the information on Isabel's killer. Joseph later gets the invitation card that the other hooker had found on the killer's coat. It turns out that the hooker also works for Madam Jenny, so she was able to get the information on the killer for Joseph. Fast forward to October 1st. Joey meets Christina in a park and asks her to take photos of him for his daughter. He wants his daughter to see him as a good man when she gets older. Joseph hints that he won't be the same for long, as Damon is returning soon. Christina also tells him she's leaving for Africa and that she wants to be with him before she leaves. They end up in Damon's apartment and get intimate. After they're done, they hear someone knock at the door. It's none other than Damon. The pair hurriedly escape through the back door and land on the streets. Before they part ways, Joseph says that he has enough money to start over somewhere and that Christina should come with him. However, she stops him and says that he must be a good man if he wants to do something in his life. She then kisses him passionately and tells him to meet her at the ballet at 7 that evening. After this, Joseph visits his ex's house and his daughter answers the door. He delivers the photos that he clicked earlier and also a bag full of cash for them. Later that evening, Christina waits for Joseph, but he goes to the cocktail party instead. At the party, he finds Isabel's murderer, the guy with a scar who goes by the name Max Forrester. He pretends to start a conversation with Max before throwing him off the roof. Meanwhile, Christina leaves the ballet, still looking for Joseph. She finds him drunk and sleeping in the street. He's remorseful and tells her why he left his unit. He is a bad person who does violent things when he's healthy and sober. He was sick of the war and having to do dirty things for the military. As he explains all this, he starts crying, so Christina comforts him. The next day, as Christina is about to leave for Africa, she receives a note from Joseph, which mentions that he paid his debts with Damon and is homeless again. He did this by giving up all the money he earned from Mr. Choi. The movie ends as we see Joseph walking on the streets while some cops track him from nearby.